Welcome to Storytime, etc. We try to post scary stories every day, so please subscribe and hit the bell button to get notified. Story 1. Lady of the Hollow, True. When I was in my early teens, my dad would drag us to Kentucky every chance he got. 10 hours each way. It seemed to me most of our trip was driving. Finally we would arrive at Aunt Lainey's home. God, I loved her. She had 9 kids. My cousin Ronnie decided that he would tell us about a urban legend called the Devil Lady of Trace Licking Hollow, or Holler as he liked to pronounce it. Ronnie shared with us the following. Up on the outer ridge of this hollow way above the tree line lived a bitter old woman who hated everyone and everything. She was so full of hate that she started doing things to her neighbors. She took pets. When she would pass a neighbor on the road as they were walking beside the road, she would try to take a swipe at them. As this woman got older, she started looking into people's windows, scaring everyone, but she would always disappear by the time any of the family would come out of their house. Then one family had had enough. The father grabbed his hunting rifle and made the hike up to the ridge where the old lady lived. When he entered her property, something was not right. It was too quiet. Then he saw her laying out in the middle of her small garden, dead. Dead for a very long time. How could she be still terrorizing the whole hillside? He also told me to stay away from the windows in the deepest part of night. I said okay, thinking this was just a ploy to get me to go to sleep and not get out of bed. You see, I'm a night owl. My mother says I have been that way since I was in her womb. So I walk upstairs and get into bed, and I cannot go to sleep. I start reading a book that I brought. The last chimes I remember were 3. I turn over and look towards the window and I freeze. There in the second floor bedroom window was this hideous face I have ever seen. Matted long hair, skin so thin that some was there and some just wasn't. Red eyes, yellow teeth. On the hag's head were horns. I was frozen. I didn't know what to do. I threw the blankets over my head and just kept praying the old hag would go away. The next morning I came down for breakfast and my aunt looked at me and said, "How did you sleep?" I said okay, I guess. And when my aunt left the room, my cousin Ronnie looks at me and says, "Buffy, she always knows what's going on in her holler."
Story 2. True, I think I have a Bigfoot problem. Throughout the days we take our 2 dogs outside to their kennels so they can get out of the house for a while and run and play and such. These are not small dogs. One is a black lab, husky mix, and the other one is a full-blooded Staffordshire Terrier, pit bull. The kennels are placed at the edge of the yard near the woods. These woods are big, large enough to take a day to go hiking through them. Lately, when it gets dark, the dogs seem on edge. They will bark and whine toward the house to come in. At first, I figured they just wanted to get back into the house, but now I'm thinking they're actually scared. 3 nights ago when I went to get them, it was already dark, but we have a security light, so it isn't pitch black or anything. I got to the front of the first kennel and noticed both dogs were being quiet. They always bark at me excitedly when I go to get them, but they were dead silent. This weirded me out a little, but not to the point of being scared. I will admit that there was a certain uneasiness in the air though, something I can't explain, but it sort of felt electric, like I was about to be shocked. The longer I was there, the more uneasy I felt. I started getting the first dog, the lab, out and heard a heavy snap in the woods near the kennels. I froze. The dogs froze. By this time I was so on edge that if someone had spoken I would have jumped, screamed, and possibly ran. The creepy feeling in the air just kept getting thicker. The lab had her bushy tail stuffed underneath her and was whining. This didn't make me feel any better. The pit bull was as far away from the woods as she could get, whimpering for me to come get her. I can only take 1 dog in at a time because they get too excited and will sometimes try to fight, so I avoid that at all costs. I felt so bad leaving the pit there by herself, but I had to do it. As I walked away, she barked this high-pitched whining type of bark at me that I have never heard her do before. The lab couldn't get to the house quick enough. I went back for the other one and dreaded every step as her door is right at the base of the woods. I would have to turn my back to the woods to open her door and get her out. The air felt heavy and stale, with an unpleasant smell, like a dead skunk, as I approached the kennel. Another snap and I was about ready to run for it, but I didn't want to leave my dog, who had her head down defensively facing the woods. I could barely make it. To be honest, it felt like trying to walk through water. I was terrified by the time I reached the door. I heard heavy breathing behind me as I got my dog out. She was scared too, but started growling behind me. I was frozen in place. The breathing continued for a minute before I heard steps started coming toward us. We both took off at the same time. A terrifying scream came out of the base of the woods. I didn't dare look back, I just ran. My pity pulled me all the way back to the house. I got in, flipped off all the lights and stared out the window at the woods. I could see something moving slightly, but just out of the light. It moved back and forth for about 5 minutes, then disappeared. It took me forever to fall asleep that night because I was so scared that every little noise freaked me out. The next night I went to get the dogs earlier, right around dusk. I thought all was good until I was getting my pity out. A huge snapping sound, like a tree branch had just been snapped in half, rang out. It sounded pretty far away, so I just hurriedly got my dog and started toward the house. A few steps away from the kennel I heard something big start charging toward me from inside the woods. We ran again and it appeared to follow for so long, then retreated back. Now, every night since then I hear sounds coming out of the woods like branches breaking and being thrown around, knocking on trees and roaring. I am absolutely terrified. I no longer even take my dogs down. I just take them for walks during the day and make sure we are all in before dusk. I don't know what to do. I'm thinking about buying a gun, but I'm not sure it will help.
Story 3. True, Christian online dating gone wrong. I am a single Christian woman in my 20s, and since I don't have many friends in my local church, I decided to sign up to a website where I could make friends online. Some of the site members also used it for the purpose of dating, which was okay with me as I was open to possibilities. Soon I met a guy there who seemed nice and we had some interests in common, and after a few months of friendship we began to Skype since we live far from each other so could not meet up in person. We began chatting, and he seemed okay, but every now and then he would pause, go quiet and just stare into the webcam. When I told him it was creepy and asked why he was doing it, he replied that he enjoys sharing the silence. I wasn't sure if it was normal, and since around the same time I was busy dating someone else, I avoided the guy for several months. However, when I broke up with my ex, I was feeling lonely and decided I wouldn't mind chatting to a friend to take my mind off things. The guy happened to be the only person available. We ended up chatting every couple of days for about 2 weeks, and I even started getting used to the uncomfortable silence and staring, when things turned weirder. During our conversations I found out that the guy was in his 30s and still a virgin, and we both agreed that we believe in sex only after marriage. So it came to me as a surprise when one day he confessed that he has a fetish for girls in school uniforms and asked me if he could send me an erotic schoolgirl outfit with a very short miniskirt, because he wanted to see me wearing it. I said no, since I don't like wearing revealing clothes. Another time, he showed up in his bed on the webcam, only wearing his underwear, and began to ask me more dirty questions. I just laughed and made a few jokes, and then tried to change the subject. However, he was not very responsive to the conversation, instead preferring to stare at his screen into the webcam, grinning, while making repetitive motions with his hand under his bed cover. I didn't want to see it, so I made an excuse and left. I should have completely stopped chatting to him after that, but the next day and the day after he repeatedly texted me, wanting to go on the webcam. Since I was bored and lonely, I asked him to promise me he wouldn't be naked and do dirty things, and he agreed. For a couple of days we managed to carry on chatting, but soon after he did it again, and this time it was much worse. First, he asked me to touch myself and send him a recording of it. I refused, explaining to him that in case my computer ever gets hacked I do not want such things to be seen anywhere on the internet. "Oh, but you don't have to make a video. I just want to listen to the noises you make," he replied. Again, I refused, saying that it made me uncomfortable. But he would not take no for an answer. He took off his underwear, and began touching himself, as if he was stroking a pet, while grinning at me with a big, creepy smile. I told him I had to go and terminated the video call. That same evening, I sent him a long message explaining why I don't think we would be compatible with each other, and said that I found him disrespectful and want to stop seeing him. He responded saying that I am stuck in the past, only thinking about my ex who used me, even though the guy had no idea what went on between me and my ex. At that, I got angry and told him not to speak to me about it again. So, pervy guy, let's not meet again.
Thanks for watching. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. And please like and subscribe to help support the channel.